WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have the Springbank 2020 Local Barley 10-year-old 55.6% edition. Whoa. So this was actually bottled on the 3rd of December 2020. It is a Oloroso sherry maturation. Look at the color. And there was 8,500 bottles of this. Whiskybase number 168125. Now, first of all, we'll have to talk about the price. Now, over here in Germany, we have a problem at the moment. It's a supply and demand problem. There's not enough supply and there's too much demand. So if we've ever studied anything about economics, we know what happens. The prices go up and up and up. So this was originally earmarked for around 119 euros per bottle, which I thought was 10 years old. Come on, 119 euros. More than 10 euros per year. That's a lot of money. And then the shops started selling them for 159 euros. And I bought mine actually at that price from Weisshaus shop. I have a little group of about 100 super fans. Those are my Patreons. And one of the people put a link in there and said, okay, here, link, good price, the best price at the moment, 159, and go. And so you click on it and you go PayPal Express, and then, ooh, you got the bottle. And within like 8 minutes, it was sold out. So, and then you go on the Whiskybase and you see they're selling the bottles now for 300 euros on the secondary market. I'm sorry, that's wrong. 300 pounds at the moment, 350 euros. For a bottle that was originally earmarked for 119. Now, I'm going to tell you the secret of Springbank. They do everything wrong. Jason, what do you mean? Oh, wait a second. I want to pour something. Oh, by the way, I bought a couple of, about a year ago, this bottle on an auction site. Springbank vintage 1997. So this is a 10-year-old whiskey, bottled in 2007. This is 55.2, this is 55.6. Now the colors are a little bit different. So you can see the sherry influence and you can see the cask influence here. Now, the secret of Springbank is they do everything wrong. What do they do wrong? First of all, they don't have computers. Everything is done by hand, which of course makes it much slower. The second thing they do wrong is they have their own malting floors. That is, of course, is a bottleneck. You can only do so much malting, and so you only have so much barley that you can actually ferment and actually distill. So they have their own malting floors, which is wrong. And they don't have any marketing. So have you seen an advertisement for Springbank online, in a magazine, anywhere? No. They do everything wrong. And yet, I'm laughing because it's just like the absolute worst case that turns into the best case, which turns into the worst case for us as a consumer. For the company, of course, is the best case because there's so much demand for this old school whiskey. And why? Because there's all these evangelists out there. There's people like me, and there's people like Roy, and there's people like the Whiskey Tribe, and there's other, not that I'm in the same category as those guys, but there are certain people that have a certain influence. And we have said now for years, Springbank is awesome. And if anyone hears Springbank is awesome, then people want to buy it. And the problem is, if you can't find it, what happens is people do sell their bottles at a much higher price. Now, in America, that might actually be illegal, but over here in Europe, up until recently, we actually had whiskey bottles on eBay. Yes, Amazon as well, but even eBay actually had whiskey on there, and people would privately buy and sell legally whiskey. And so this what happens here is that the prices just go up and up and up and up. Now, there were 8,500 bottles, which seems like it should be enough, but apparently not. Now, I don't know about you, but let's just talk about my channel for 1 second. I have about 4,000 people that are subscribed. I have about 2,000 people that watch some of my videos. So that's a certain range. The Whiskey Tribe has 100,000 people. Ralphie has over 100,000 people. And even though only half the people watch those videos, that'd still be 50,000 people each. Well, let's say they're the same, they're still 50,000. So if 50,000 of those people that just watch Ralphie or the Whiskey Tribe wanted to buy a bottle of it, that means there's a one bottle for every four people. Do you start to see the problem here? Even with my small radius, even in Germany, we did not get 8,500 bottles. We got maybe 850 bottles. And if I have 2,000 people that watch my videos in German, I'm going to have maybe more people wanting to buy a bottle like that than actually are in Germany, let alone the years and decades of other fans and evangelists that have been praising the hymn of Springbank because they do everything wrong. They do everything the old way. And so this is our problem here. Now, one other thing I really don't understand is the following. This is local barley. So this is actually grown on the peninsula, very close, within miles of the distillery. Even on the back of the bottle, it says it is the Greg Craig's, if I pronounce that correctly, the Greg Craig's farm. We know that it's Belgravia barley type. And what they did is they put it in a sherry cask, Oloroso sherry. Why? If I'm going to have a local barley, I want it to shine in a bourbon barrel. Maybe not even a first fill bourbon barrel, because I want that barley influence to come through. I want that terroir to actually be evident. But instead, they just basically bulldozed everything and just absolutely painted over everything with this dark sherry Oloroso moment. And I'm sad. I'm actually sad about that. Why? All right, good. So let's nose. At the very beginning, without letting it stand for the last 7 or so minutes, you have just a whole rush of that sherry. That sherry dissipates slowly. Those volatile molecules leave the glass, and then you have a little bit more of that Springbank funk. You have an herbalness, you have a peatiness, you have a little bit of barrel char, you have also a little bit of a maltiness, and of course you have all that red berry moment from the sherry. And so that's very, very interesting. It smells nice, it really does. Going over to the 1977, it smells a little bit nicer. That more of that funk, that more of that, a little bit of a cigarette smoke was in there as well. There's this very, very, very smart book out there. And in that smart book, it says two things which I did not know that I want to share with you. The first thing that I did not know is that Springbank is distilled 2.5 times, and they use a ppm of between 12 and 15. So the long row is distilled twice, between 50 and 55, and the Hazelburn is distilled 3 times. So this is distilled 2.5 times. They have one wash still, and they have 2 spirit stills. And the second thing, which I thought was very interesting, is Springbank also uses only this. They also have here their where was this here? They have their malting here. Where was it? So here, when Springbank is produced, the malted barley is dried using 6 hours of peat smoke and then followed by 30 hours of hot air, while long row requires 48 hours of peat smoke. Oh, so in the last couple of years, they have increased their volumes. In 2019, they produced about 280,000 liters. That is not a lot. That is one of the smaller distilleries out there. Unfortunately, in 2020, the distillery was closed for about 5 months, so I don't even think they even made half of that process of that amount that they wanted to. So don't be surprised if 2000 and the 20 bottlings will be very expensive in 10 years from now. And 10% usually goes for the long row, and 10% usually goes for the Hazelburn, and 80% is usually made for Springbank. And as I said, supply and demand at the moment, supply is, I'm going to use the word weak, and the demand is enormous. All right, let's try this. Cheers, 55.6%. Springbank Local Barley 2020 edition, Oloroso sherry. It's somewhat hot. Now I tried this. This is my control whiskey beforehand, my calibration whiskey. And first of all, this is much. There's more peat in here. There's more ash in here than there is over here. There's more heat over here than over there. At the beginning, you get a flood of the red sherry moment. And then you get a little bit of a funkiness, a little bit of an herbal type of moment. Then the ashiness comes in. The heat comes on top of that. And what's left is a light ashiness with an interesting berry sherry moment. Is it a good whiskey? Yeah. Is it a great whiskey? Definitely not. This would not make it on my top 10 list ever. This is for me, and you're gonna maybe want to stone me. You might want to disown me. You might want to get rid of your subscription. Subscribe and desubscribe. But this is a C whiskey for me. Now, before you turn off the channel, I'm going to go over to Springbank 1997 and try that. It's not that I don't like Springbank. I actually do. But this just doesn't do it for me. Over here, though, mm. Mm-hmm. Much more viscosity, less of the peat smoke, much more of a barrel moment influence, and a very, very long, nice lasting, almost typical Springbank moment. Nice. This is a B whiskey. This is a C whiskey. Now, it might just be the case that I did not like the barley. It might just be the case that I'm not a great fan of Springbank and sherry maturation. It might just be, if you add water to it, actually the ashiness comes in a little bit more. So I diluted it down in my German video to about 48%. Now I got it down to about 43%. It might just be that this is not the greatest combination ever, personally. If you go to Whiskybase, you have people giving this 94s, 95s, 96. At the moment, it's 89.22. And you have a lot of people giving it also 84s, 85s, 86. That's my range at the moment. So it's not just me that's saying this whiskey is average. Higher price does not mean better whiskey. And this is one of the whiskeys at the moment where people have the fear of missing out. I'm sorry, but Springbank is not going to get much cheaper in the future. There's going to be more and more people wanting this whiskey. Think of Pappy. And the problem is you, instead of going to Pappy, you went to Weller, and then Weller became exclusive. From Weller, you went to Buffalo Trace products, and then Buffalo Trace products almost sold out. And I do not have a suggestion here. Kilkerran would be a good suggestion. Springbank 10, if you can find it, would be a suggestion. But Springbank just isn't making the capacity to survive, to serve the whole world. And they have no plans. It's a family-owned J and A Mitchell and Co. It's a family-owned company. They're not going to put in new stills. They're not going to build even more malting floors. They did build a new warehouse just recently, palletized warehouse, also for sherry casks and so on. But they're not going to double their capacity anytime soon. So this is going to be one of those whiskeys where we're going to say, oh, do I really, really want to buy that? Do I really want to dig deep in my pocket and pay through the nose for something which is good? Sometimes very good, sometimes only good. Or do I want to take my hard-earned money and buy something else instead? And unfortunately, my recommendation is if you find it at a great price, go for it. But do not start paying secondary prices. No way in the world is this worth $300 or 350 euros. Or anything else in that range. It's not worth anything above. It's an 80 euro whiskey for me in my palate. And I was willing to pay double that. 160 is what I paid, 59. And I shared it and it's gone, and I do not regret that. But if I had bought the bottle myself and had tried it and was stuck with this bottle at that price, I would have been a little bit PO'd. All right. So, Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American. Oh, by the way, I bought a few, about maybe 8 different bottles in 2019 at auction sites from Springbank. 2019, I started saying Springbank's going to be the next auction hit. Unfortunately, I was right. The prices went skyrocketed, went through the ceiling. They are just unbelievable. The prices people are willing to pay for old Springbank, or even any type of Springbank. All right, so that's the problem we're going to have to deal with, and my suggestion is move on. If you have a better suggestion, please write it down there. Question of the day: what is your favorite Springbank? And the second question of the day, if you want, is which bottle of whiskey do you regret buying? Regret having bought. Something was overpriced, not from the taste, but something was like, oh, that's one of the, on the pedestal, we had the whiskey, we bought it. It was like, oh, really? That's it? Okay. What's the hype? And that's a little bit about that bottle. One time, 43%. Actually better than 48% I had. I would actually give that a C plus now, if with water. All right, water it down to about 45, 46, 43%. Enjoy it. Give it some time in the glass. It might help as well. But this is not a $300 whiskey. It's not a $160 whiskey. It's a $80 to $90 whiskey, in my personal opinion. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for liking. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for writing your comments. All the best in the future. Whiskey Jason here. Bye-bye.